Hello, early friends, and welcome back to Max Answers Writing Advice Questions. Today, I have a bit of a special video. I haven't had a big forum video in a long while, kind of like a conversational video, and I thought I would bring it back, because today we're going to be talking about retcons, what they are, how they work, and how I feel about them. This is one of those particular issues in writing that is not kind of objective. I don't think I can give you like a right or wrong answer here, even within my own point of view. So I thought instead, let's sit down and let's talk about retcon, or retcons, or a retcon. It's really hard to refer to this as a noun since it's actually a pseudo-acronym, but anyhow, before I go anywhere, I'm going to remind you, as always, that the following is merely just my advice, my opinion, on what works for me. Don't take it as gospel, instead take it as the ramblings of a silly person who is still dying from the heat. Is it retcons? Or is it a retcon? Or is it retconning? I don't even know. It's really hard to address this particular issue just by its name. But before I go anywhere, if you're unfamiliar with my open forum conversational videos, I'm going to explain to you how this is going to work. I'm going to come in, I'm going to give you a set of questions that I want you to go into the comments down below and answer, and then I'll answer the questions myself. Kind of as an open forum, if you may, where we can all share our particular points of view. Retcon, retconning, retcons, they're kind of a little bit odd because they usually get a pass in television because television is kind of weird, but in fiction they're kind of like a death mark and it's really weird. So I thought, I would sit down, explain to you what it is, and then we would share our thoughts and feelings. Now, before I give you the question, let's actually define what is retcon. Well, retcon is actually a compression of two words, retroactive continuity. Retroactive continuity is the act of retroactively changing elements of the past to better fit the present or the future. It is most often seen in television where characters are written out of particular things that happened in the past, or something that happened previously in a previous episode or season is simply just written out of existence or changed to better fit the current season. And now that you know what these are, in case you didn't know, or now that you're finally able to clearly pinpoint them out of writing and television and things of that such, let's dive right in with today's questions. Today's questions are super straightforward. Number one, what are your experiences with retroactive continuity? And question number two, how do you feel about retroactive continuity? And do you think it is a good thing or a bad thing? Simple as that. Again, I want you to go down in the comments below and let me know what you think, but before all of that, allow me to explain to you how I feel about these particular questions and this issue at hand. Question number one, what are my experiences with retroactive continuity? Well, as I mentioned previously, I believe that it happens the most in television, though it originated first in comic books. And it also happens in comic books, but I think it gets a leeway and a pass in television because of one particular reason, but I'll go over it later. Now, as for my personal experience, have I ever reached and fixed something after the fact to better make it fit to what's going on in the story right now? Not really. Like in the act of writing a book, especially if it's the first draft, if a fact or something kind of becomes outdated or something happens in the act of writing that changes something in the past, I always make sure to go and fix it or patch over that particular plot hole, if you may, later on before the book is released or before I send it off to any of my betas. I've never been in a situation where, like, I've written a book and then I realized, oops, I actually contradicted myself. Like, I myself, I'm pretty good at catching those things because that's the thing that I look out for in writing. That's the sort of beta that I am myself. And I've never like released a book and I'm like, oh, I contradicted what happened in book one. I keep a really good eye for things like that. So and personally, I don't like those things. I don't like retconning. I'm kind of sipping into my second question, but I wouldn't let that slide because I don't like it myself. So yeah, let's just take this as a great chance to dive into the next question. Do I think retcons are a good thing or a bad thing? Well, really quickly, I think retcons get a little bit of a leeway in television because television is kind of volatile. Because you can just have actors die, you can have your characters die, you can have your characters like change shows, drama can happen, things can happen. Writing for television is kind of really volatile because you really have no control over what's going on. You think you do, but you really don't. So I kind of understand writers for television writing themselves into a corner. It shouldn't happen, but it can happen, and that's why I kind of give it a leeway in television. In fiction writing, particularly books, I give it less of a leeway because you have plenty of time to plan, to check, and to double check things to make sure that you're not contradicting yourself. And really, if you're sending it to betas, someone is gonna be keeping an eye out for things, such as, hey, didn't you say this character died? Talking about characters dying, the impetus for this question, the reason why I wanted to put this video out for you, is because I had a conversation with somebody, a really heated conversation about a particular something that came out recently. Prepare for this video to be dated now. A game called Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain came out, and it sparked a conversation with somebody else that I knew, because that game retroactively continuifies something that happened in the earlier games. Literally something that you see on screen, and I'm clearly dancing around it because I don't want to give spoilers to anybody who's actually playing the game. And something that happened in a previous game that you see on screen that is kind of like the plot twist, if you may, of the ending of the game kind of gets undone. It gets undone, and it's a problem. It's a problem. Why? Because I feel that retconning always feels cheap, especially in fiction writing. In television, like, it's kind of understandable, and I give it leeway, but, you know, it's still iffy. In fiction writing, though, I don't give it leeway. It feels cheap. It feels kind of like a writer walked themselves into a corner, or wrote themselves into a corner, if you may, and they couldn't find a way out. And they couldn't just be like, oh, you know this thing that I did? Yeah, let's just undo it. And I know that just said it feels cheap, but that's only half of the problem. What is the other half of retroactive continuity? The other half of it is not only that it feels cheap, but also because it just opens up an entire, like, floodgate of questions. Seriously, think about it. Whenever you say something in fiction, and I made a video recently talking about the unreliable narrator, go take a look at it, because it kind of covers this as well. Because you assume there is the unspoken truth, the unspoken law of fiction is that whatever the narrators are telling you is true. It's absolutely, completely true. The narrator wouldn't lie to you because then you wouldn't have a reason to trust what is going on. And the problem with retroactive continuity is that it makes you not trust the narrator, the focus character, the point of view from which we're seeing the story. Because you're telling me that this thing that happened, that I saw on screen, that was kind of like the plot twist of this entire game, suddenly didn't happen. And all of those things who were blown out of the table are now back on the table. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, like, okay, so this thing that happened no longer happened. What about all the other things that happened next to that, though? Did those also happen? Is Chico also dead? Or is he not dead? Because, like, nobody really cared about Chico, so I'm hoping he's actually dead. But anyhow, Metal Gear stuff out of the way. Retroactive continuity, it's kind of taking money out of the emotional bank account that you have with your reader. I don't know about you, but myself as a writer and a reader, as a creator and a consumer of fiction and stories, I like to feel this feeling of trust between myself and the writer. I want to feel that they know what they're doing, and I want my readers to feel that, like, I know what I'm doing, and that they should never have to question what is going on in the story unless I want to. And having retroactive continuity on purpose always feels like you're testing that trust, that you're kind of applying pressure on something that is kind of sacred, if you may. That sounds a little extremist, but you know what I'm getting at with this. It's really easy, incredibly easy for the reader to just close the book, turn off the game, and many other analogies that work the exact same way. So why test that relationship? So again, really quickly, what are my thoughts on retroactive continuity as a summary? Well, while I do think that it gets a little bit of leeway in other mediums, I think that in fiction, you know, the thing that I do and that you probably do as well, I think that there are plenty of ways to prevent having to go back and retroactively change something. I think there's plenty of leeway, there's plenty of chances to actually fix any of that. Because you have the entire review process, you have your beta readers, people that can catch those things or can at the very least give you insight before anything like that can happen. You know, I feel that there's way more than in television and video games and any other sort of fiction medium. There's just way more leeway in writing. You have way more space, you know? You don't have to release the book until you're certain of it. And that is why I tend to not release first books of series until I have the second one already written. That's just me, though. That's just the crazy person that I am. But please, feel free to share your very own point of view in the comments below. If you want to be a part of this video, all you have to do is answer the questions in the comments below. What are your experiences with retroactive continuity? And do you think it is a good thing or a bad thing, and why? Again, as I mentioned, retroactive continuity, much like many other things in writing, it's kind of a gray zone because everyone can have a different point of view and a different stand on this, kind of like with filler and with purple prose and a lot of those other things. They're really kind of iffy places in writing, and I don't think there's an objective answer to any of this. I think it's all going to be based on your particular point of view and the sort of writer you are. So please feel free to go into the comments down below and let me know what you think. But for now, this has only been my opinion on what I think, and I can't wait to see what you have to say. And of course, as always, if you have your own thoughts, feedbacks, or questions that you would like to send my way, please feel free to leave them down in the comments below as well. I want to thank you for watching, thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I'll be seeing you on the next one. Mwah!